Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing The Miseducation of Cameron Post. This was directed by Desiree Akhavan and stars Chloe Grace Moretz, Sasha Lane, Forrest Goodluck and John Gallagher. And this is really the story of Cameron Post, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, who is ultimately caught in the backseat of a car with a prom queen. And she's sent away by a conservative family to a treatment centre for same-sex conversion therapy. She is ultimately subjected to bizarre disciplines, de-gaying methods by fierce Dr. Lydell Marsh. Cameron connects with other fringe teens, Jane and Adam. Cool and clever at playing along with the treatment, Jane and Adam show Cameron that for the first time in her life, being an outcast is exactly what she's meant to be. This was ultimately based upon a book of the same name, written by Emily M. Danforth. I liked this. I was surprised by it. A friend of mine saw it and said it was really good, and so I decided to watch it. And it's one of these films I've been unable to find and get hold of to watch until recently. I thought Chloe Grace Moretz is really great in this. This is one of her best roles. She's a really brilliant actress, a bright up-and-comer young actress who does a fantastic job in every role that she takes on, and this is no exception. This is a type of film that sort of has a big impact on me in different ways, because I disagree with same-sex diversion therapy, which I think is terrible and has a really terrible effect on the people forced to partake in this particular type of therapy, as they call it. The subject matter in this can sort of aggravate me with just what they force on people, and ultimately trying to force them to stop being who they are by saying that homosexuality doesn't exist. It's only a sin, and it's all this sort of stuff that's in it that sort of hits me and causes me to arc up a bit watching this film. But what's really great about this movie is the simplicity of the story and the way it's executed. It's really well written. Every scene serves a purpose within the story and in the film. And it's very subtle with things. You still know exactly what happened through particular sequences and shots that are shown to you, but it's very subtle with what it's trying to say. And it's not very graphic in its way of explaining or showing this, which I think is a really good idea. And I think this film is very relevant and is more accessible to the young teenagers going through this sort of stuff. Even though it's a serious subject matter, they're able to lighten up and have levity in certain parts. And it feels very real. And I think this film is very important to come out at the time it does. And the subject matter is very important for us to look at and talk about, I think. What I try and do with movies like this is I try and look at it from different points of view. So I try and look at it from the point of view of the people who are doing the same-sex diversion therapy and think, why are they doing this? Why do they think that this is the right way to go about things? And why do they think this is right? It's a struggle to look at it from this point of view. But what I found is, by looking at it, obviously one of the guys who's in charge and who's telling them these different things and helping with the so-called therapy was once gay, and now he's not. And that's sort of what is a driving force of his sort of character, to say, yes, I'm much more happier now, so I want everybody to feel that. And that's why he tries and goes about it, but it's not really effective, and the way they go about it isn't right, and it doesn't help anybody, and it really causes more damage than it does good. Chloe's character, Cameron, is a really solid female character. She has great moments of strength within particular scenes. She stands up for herself. She says what she thinks, no matter what the consequences are. She always tries to find the right reason for things to happen. She tries along the way to accept the therapy, as they say, but she struggles too much with it. She ultimately can't accept what they're telling her is the truth. And she talks about one particular scene after an event where someone hurts themselves, and she has to talk to this particular man investigating it. And she talks about she doesn't trust them. She doesn't like the fact that they're trying to teach her to hate herself and say what she thinks and feels is wrong and it's against God's will or whatever. And it really shows that she feels like that she's being abused, that she isn't treated right, that they're brainwashing, that she's telling them to hate themselves ultimately for feeling these things, and to make them feel guilt-ridden to think or feel any desire or anything at all. And this is just, this is the stuff that really makes me frustrated. They're going on about how Scientology is a cult, but I think this is cult mentality as well, where these people are forced to go into this particular place and are forced to believe something no matter what. And if they don't and they go against it, then the people in charge cause more of an issue for them and it make it more difficult. And I just feel this sort of thing is, in a way, a cult mentality, telling people what they should think and feel and believe, rather than allowing them to accept themselves or them accepting who they are. And this just doesn't make sense to me. How you can think this is right, and how forcing someone to hate themselves or repress how they feel isn't helping the issue. It's just repressing it. It's just keeping it hidden deep down within, which is going to cause more struggle and frustration and sadness and anxiety within the particular person than it does already. And I think this is horrific. I don't like the fact that these places exist at all, and they think they're doing the right thing, but they're really not. It's detrimental to the person that's going through it. They're struggling enough as it is without being forced to believe or think something else, or believe and think that what they feel and think is wrong. I think all the acting's solid in it. Besides Chloe Grace Moretz, who gives one of the best performances and has some really great moments, I think Sasha Lane's really good. She's ultimately been in Hellboy recently, but I sort of saw her in American Honey and I thought she was a really interesting actress. She reminds me a lot of Juliette Lewis in many ways. She sort of makes up things and improvises within scenes and gives a unique spin on particular sequences and scenes that would be played one particular way. She plays them completely different. I think Forrest Goodluck is really good as well. I first saw him in Revenant. He played DiCaprio's son in that, and he's really great in this. All three of the leads are fantastic and give great performances and are playing very believable and realistic characters, and I really liked that, and that drew me into this film. And I was willing to go on the journey with these characters. I think John Gallagher, who I really know from Newsroom, is sort of solid in this and sort of reminds me of the character that was in Boy Erased. He's sort of playing a similar character in a way, and it may even be loosely based on that, as similar to Boy Erased. This is one of those films that came out that has a similar subject matter to another film. So this and Boy Erased are very similar in their choices. Yes, we're looking at different protagonists through the film, so in this, we're looking at a female character, and ultimately in Boy Erased, we're looking at a male character. Boy Erased was a bit more harsh in execution of it, and it was a bit more raw and sort of shocking and surprising and hard to digest and watch at times. Where this film was a bit more accessible in that regard. It still deals with the subject matter, still has the same impact, it still has characters struggling with things and trying to come to terms with this and finding themselves in this, but it's not as a harrowing story as Boy Erased. Now, I think they're both great films, and Boy Erased is based on a true story, and it really needed to be shown, and it worked for the film that they were actually portraying and showing on screen. But I think this film is a bit more easy to go into. The subject matter is still the same, it's still tough, the sequences that these characters find themselves in, and there are shocking moments within this that are kind of harrowing in a way, just not as full on as Boy Erased. But I just feel this was a bit more of an easy watch. It sort of reminds me of how Armageddon was sort of fun, end of the world film, and Deep Impact was sort of the more dramatic and heartfelt. And that's the difference I feel between these two films. I like the simplicity of the way it's shot. I like the way the story is told. There's so many sequences in this where we don't see things, but we hear about them or being told about them, or they're effective in small doses. And when she's found by the prom queen, by her boyfriend, in a loving tryst, it's the shot. They keep the camera just on Chloe's face, and you hear everything else going around her, and you get an impact and a feeling of what she's going through and what the other characters are going through in that particular moment. Ultimately, this thing where a boy hurts himself, and rather than showing it, they talk about it, or they show the aftermath, and they show it in a unique way, and I really like this as well. I think it has one of the best endings of a sort of independent, well told and made film, in that after this guy hurts himself and everything that goes wrong and the effect that this sort of therapy is having on the characters, at the end it's like everything goes back to normal. The guy in charge, who was upset and overcome by sadness by what had transpired with this young guy hurting himself, but in this scene he just sort of talks about, oh, we're getting another one coming in, and he's so excited and fun, and it's like he's acting like nothing happened. And I think this is a great example of how even after a traumatic event happening in this that's really terrible, they just carry on doing the same thing and they haven't learnt anything. And I think this was powerful. Then right at the end is ultimately them, like on the cover of the DVD, them in the back of a pickup truck, sort of breaking free. And that's a great sequence as well. And it's perfectly shot and executed. And overall, this film is fantastic in the simplicity of it. And it was the first film in a while that I've been so solely and completely captivated by and sucked into it, because I really enjoyed the film. Final verdict. Look, if you want a solid film, a well-made film, a very relevant subject matter and story, this is definitely the film for you. If you're interested in how these same-sex diversion therapy organisations work and the detrimental effect that they have on people, this is definitely a film for you. And if you like Boy Erased, I think this is something you should check out as well. I think it's a very underrated film, and it should have been a lot more accessible to see than it actually was. I'm going to give The Miseducation of Cameron Post 4 out of 5. I enjoyed this film. It was well made, well told. It was a simple story, but told effectively. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.